Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and today we're taking a look at the Galleria Gwanggyo in South Korea, which has this really kind of amazing thing happening around this kind of like mesh facade around the cube. And we want to create the same thing in Grasshopper and kind of just go around and see how the approach or our logic is for our thing. We're using actually a plugin called Pufferfish in this plugin, but I will in this Grasshopper script. But this is gonna be a very useful plugin that you can use also in very many other varieties of your scripts. So let's get started. Great, so we are just gonna start with a new script under like File, New Documents, and I just want to kind of show you the basic idea of how we're gonna go through this. So basically we create a rectangle here at first, and then we also create a polyline or polycurve, or just a curve, I guess, in Grasshopper or in Rhino, that can be used and be like the main reference point to those kind of things that go around our shape here, you know, like because we have always this kind of diamond kind of shape thing that goes around this cube, and we want to recreate that. And this would be basically our guide for that. So if we just sketch this out, we have then our basic form like this, right? Which kind of gets like, I don't know, duplicated upwards or like moved upwards a little bit. And that has then obviously the connection, so it's going to be like a 3D thing, very simple. And then we're going to have a line that basically goes around this piece like this upwards, and those points then will be put basically on the surface one by one of this thing, like closer and closer. And then when we are there, oops, I just deleted it, whatever. When they are on those things, I want we have the basic the facade, right? Here's like the floor, and then we have one initial point. We have one point that is kind of above, and actually we're gonna create one here and one here as well. So then we can basically create a circle, and this circle then has different varieties of length. Sometimes they're like bigger, and sometimes they're a little bit smaller, and depending on this variety that we will define by a graph, we kind of have this like shape that goes around it, and this then will be triangulated, so that basically made it into a mesh. And then we have all those different triangles that go on the thing that can then be then basically recreates the basic form of it. So that's the thought process of this whole thing. So let's first import the geometry, like the basic shape here. And then we're also gonna import the input curve that we create here. Great. Now that we have that, we want to extrude this curve just into the Z direction, like that. Extrude, Z. Double click on it, Z, and then we're gonna put a number slider, maybe quite big, like that. So make it a little bit bigger so it kind of fits. And just in case, I also want to cap it so it's always like the full thing. And now we also have the curve obviously around, and we want to divide this curve into several pieces. And I want to have a quite high amount of pieces, so that's gonna be great like this. And now we're going to move those things to the closest curve. So we're gonna brep closest point, and we use those points here and the brep that we created here down there. And you see it goes as close to the things as possible, like how we want it. And obviously, if we would change some of the parameters, it will still kind of apply. Great, now that we have those defined, we're just gonna hide the initial things so we can just focus on those things. And what I want to do also now is, if those things are very far away, like here for example, I want to get those points removed as well. So we're gonna because we get the distance here, we can really easily do that. So if the distance of this is larger than, let's say, 20 meters in this example, or feet, or whatever your unit of choice is, we're going to dispatch it and dispatch the things that are larger than this amount. And then we can, if you put it in a point here at B, we see those points that are really where the further away just get removed, and those ones that are closer will still remain there. And if we increase this or decrease this, we get more points on the go, which is exactly what we wanted to have. Good. Now that we have that, we want to create a graph that goes with this curve as well. So to basically create this like different sizes here. So we have the curves here. We're just gonna go list length. So we kind of know how many there are. So there are 32. So we want to create a range of domains between, or a range of points between 0 and 1. Because if we take a graph mapper and then put it on, for example, Perlin, it takes things from 0 to 1, and we can also click on it and then always kind of change it here. But I want it so we don't have to worry about that. So we just take a domain between 0 and 1, which is already standardly in here, and we take the steps of the list length of the points. But we actually need to, because right now we're getting 33 pieces, but we want to have 32, so we're gonna do x minus 1 here. And now we're getting, if you take a panel here, we're getting points between 0 and 1 in kind of random order, and if you would put it in here, you see it would be a more kind of ordered one, but we want to have it kind of random as well. Good. Now that we have that, we want to move those points accordingly then into the direction that we want. So the thing is, we want to move those points are kind of like we want to move the points inwards or outwards, and also up and down. So we're going to use the points that we create here in the first place, or here, like those ones, and we're also going to dispatch them so we get the same points that we are moving away from here. So we're going to use a vector between the points that we created here, and also between those points here that are here in the first place. And then we are going to move the points that we moved like there by the amplitudes of our vector, by the amplitude that we create in this graph mapper, and by the vector that was created by those two things. And as you see, it now always moves kind of into the direction of where our initial graph is. As you see, for example, here, this one kind of goes inward, whereas the other ones, they kind of go outward, because here the line is in this direction, and here it's in that direction, because it wants to go into this one, and here it goes into that one. And that's great. But they're kind of like a little small, so I just actually want to just multiply the graph output, so we're getting a more kind of strong amplitude in that. So you can put this into B. You can also just add something, so we have like a basic length as well, but I wanna for now just do like this. Great, now we have our points that are, as you see, kind of like random in here, and obviously if we change the graph, it always kind of goes like back and forth like that. Good. Now that we have that, we also want to create points that are inwards as well, so we can create this kind of the circle that we wanted to have in the beginning as well, because the circle will be kind of like be all around there, right? So we're just going to do the same here and do the motion just with a minus x, and now we have them inwards. And then we also want to create some points that are just going upwards a little bit, and we are going to move them upwards by, I think it would be like the most intelligent way to just move them by the same amount upwards, but into like the z direction quite directly like that. So we're just gonna take it from here and take the initial points again from here. However, we also need to use the multiplier in here as well. Great, now that we have that, we can go for a 3-point circle, like here, 1, 2, 3. And this then now creates our basic shape rings that we want to modify and use as well. There might be like some complications going on in here, which can be kind of, let's say, fixed-ish when we maybe like reduce it or increase this amount here. But this is something you might need to be aware of. What we also want to do, because we're having quite the amount of points, at the moment, you see, for example, those ones would be then connected if you use the loft commands, like lofts. And I want them to be separated. So we can do this actually because we created those points here in the beginning, right? And we can use point groups, whoopsie, point groups, and define kind of like a distance between the points. So we have like those points in different kind of, their own like group-ish. And this might need to be adjusted manually as well, so it can always kind of create, because if it's too much, it will be less groups. If it's too little, it would be like quite a lot of groups. And okay, those are then are created, and we're actually gonna use just the list item commands. And we're gonna create it, list item commands, and create the indices by here. And we are going to use the circles here, and then we're gonna use the same loft. And as you see it, then we'll create a separate loft for each. Okay, good. Now that's done, and that's what I think would have been the most difficult part, in my opinion. We want to create a mesh that kind of resembles those different shapes that we have here, right? Because they're always triangles, and we want to create those triangles as well. And the best way to do this is by mesh and then actually triangulate them, at least in a rough way, So we do mesh brep, and then we are going to use custom settings. And those custom settings then the most important ones will be the min edge and also the aspect ratio. So the aspect ratio we just like put in 2. And the min edge would be 1 over here. Give me a second. Like that, min edge. And then we have this at least defined, and now we have our basic mesh defined like that already. So that's pretty good. So you can go back and forth, and we might also, and this is where actually pufferfish comes in. If you go for food for rhino, pufferfish, and we have it here. You can just download here, download, and you click on login. You can just put in your email and stuff. It's a really good plugin that I really recommend to use, and you have to install then. It might go automatically, but you have to go maybe into file, library, special folders, and then components folder, and then you have the library where you can use it. And there we are using the commands reduced mesh, like that. And we are also going to use the commands close mesh, or maybe, I don't know if we even need that one, but like still maybe just in case, but yeah. Good, and that basically defined our shape, and now we can just always like play around with it and change it, and that's gonna be pretty good. So yeah, this basically defined our shape now. And now one last thing I want to do is that I want to create a mesh, like use this mesh actually, and deconstruct it, deconstruct mesh. And then we are going to move the faces by arrange or like by random amounts between 0 and 1. And then we are going to, we have those numbers here, right? And the list length will be the amount of vertices that are going to be then moved like that. And we're going to use the seed of 4, and the other one would be the seed of 2. And we're going to move it by, and because we're going to construct a vector between those two in the x and y direction, we're going to move those vertices there, like a little bit random, you know. And we can also obviously make it always a multiplier between those. And then we would have kind of like a random way of doing it. And then we're gonna reconstruct the mesh. So construct mesh, and we're going to use this one faces here, and we have this meshes here, and then we just go for naked edges, mesh edges, and there we're going to use the naked edges to create our pipes that we have here in the beginning. And we're gonna maybe reduce the radius a little bit, because otherwise this will be too much of it. Great, so yeah, that's basically it. It's kind of like a bigger script, but you can always download it there. And I just gonna also show this here from the beginning. And now we can just bake the stuff. Bake this one, yes, and bake that one. Bake this one, group yes, and then create this mesh as well, and then we have our basic OMA type architecture style that we can use. And obviously we might need to actually increase the amounts a little bit or decrease it so to have it to our liking. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. Obviously you have to play around a little bit. This one's like a little bit like a smaller one, like small iteration. This one was like a little bit of a better one. I guess this one like resembles it a little bit more closely. But yeah, it's like a rough resemblance of that. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. See you in the next one, and have a good day. And if you have any questions, please ask me those. And yeah, see you in the next one. Thank you very much, and bye bye.